I am so pleased and it's such a pleasure to introduce to you all our morning keynote speaker, Gorick Ng. Gorick is a Wall Street Journal best-selling author of the book, The Unspoken Rules: Secrets to Starting Your Career Off Right, a vital guide for anyone looking to jumpstart their professional journey. As a faculty member here at UC Berkeley, Gorick teaches unspoken rules of career navigation. He is also a career advisor at Harvard, specializing in coaching first-generation, low-income students, sharing his expertise and personal insight to help them navigate the complexities of career development. Gorick's work and insight has received widespread recognition with features to the Today Show, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, CNBC. And in 2022, he was named one of the 30 thinkers to watch by Thinkers 50. Gorick, a first-generation college student himself, is a graduate of Harvard College and Harvard Business School. Please join me in welcoming Gorick Ng.
Thank you so much, Ying, for that generous introduction. And thank you to both you and Lisa and Angela and to the entire Now conference planning team for bringing us all together today. And to all of you, hello, UC family. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be with us here today in this virtual setting. And kudos to you all for investing in your futures and your path ahead. As Ying had mentioned, my name is Gorick Ng. I take he, him, his pronouns, and I'm here today to share with you a topic that's near and dear to my heart and that I hope will be valuable to you all. And that is the topic of what I wish someone had told me sooner about how to take control of your career. Now, as some of you who are on Zoom on desktop may have already seen, I have a poll. And I would encourage all of you to participate, whether it's on your smartphone or on your desktop. There are two ways to participate. If you're on your desktop, go into the chat window and click on the pollev.com/Gorick link. If using your mobile device is easier, go ahead, open up your camera app, aim it at this QR code. It will bring you to a black page where it will ask you to register. However, please go ahead and click skip for now. Every poll that I have in this session is completely anonymous. What's most important is that I get a sense of what's on your heart, what's on your mind, what are you thinking about, and moreover, what brings you all here today? So my one question for you all to kick things off and to get us into the right tone for the rest of not just my session, but for the entire day is, what is your primary professional goal right now? And for those of you who are just joining us here and missed the QR code, there is a QR code at the top right-hand corner of the screen. Curious to see what you all are thinking about. And given that we're seeing the results come in real time, let's take a look. To lead with integrity and equity and model the behaviors that reflect our organization, amazing. Grow and gain more knowledge. Identify and act on the steps needed to pivot. Retirement. Learning more about my role and expanding my skills. Figure out what's next in my UC career/job. Systems administrator, job competence, finding a position in executive leadership to further the goals and mission of the UC system. Planning to retire, succeeding in my current role, figuring out how to grow and where to go. I love that phrase. Increasing my potential to better advance the system-wide groups in which I participate. This is fantastic. I want to not distract those of you who are typing. So for those of you who are still typing, please contribute. And I'm going to share this out with the learning team so that we can do even more to serve all of you long after this conference ends. And for those of you who've already participated in this poll, take a glance at what your colleagues and friends here are saying. What's fascinating is I'm seeing some rhymes here around what we're all aspiring to, which is to develop ourselves, to develop the people around us, to develop this broader system of the UC system, and to ultimately contribute to a better world. And at the same time, what gets us there is figuring out what's next, what my next goal is, what my next role is, what my next step is. Fascinating to see you all put your goals into words. Thanks so much for participating. And I want to maybe just take a couple more. Unfortunately, because so many of you are here in this room, but we're limited on time, we won't get a chance to see everybody's contribution here. But hopefully seeing fulfillment and growth, promotion, learning my current position, preparing for a change, building our financial safety net, becoming an author, an advisor, is all something that you're able to take away from today's session, or at least you're going to take an ounce away from our session here today that will get you further, faster towards those goals. And with that, I wanted to share with you, well, the why, which I kind of already went into, but my goal in this session and my book, it's to give you the tools to reach your goals, whatever they happen to be in the short and long run. And why me? Well, I've been in this very position of needing to figure out what's next. And I've had the honor and privilege to be able to spend my life's work helping others who are making this transition as well. A little bit about me, and Ying was so generous in sharing with you the serious bio on me. And if you were to go on a LinkedIn and connect with me, and I hope we'll turn this conversation into a friendship, but you'll see that I graduated from Harvard, worked in financial services, became a management consultant, returned to get my MBA at Harvard Business School, wrote a book called The Unspoken Rules, and now have the honor of working with so many of you to empower the next generation in their career navigation journey at UC Berkeley. Now, as your students will likely remind you, or your nieces and nephews and whatnot, social media is not real life. It's a highly curated version of our lives. Well, that's the external narrative, as I say it. What you don't see, however, is this. I'm the proud son of a working class single mom who left school when she was 12 years old. She was the youngest of several siblings, and back in the day, well, she was the only girl in the house and had to forego her career ambitions of becoming a nurse to work in a sewing machine factory. And when my mom was in the mid to later stages of her career, and when I was 14 years old, my mom was laid off. And I, as the person who knew how to get onto the internet, who knew how to speak English, I had to grow up a little bit more quickly. And so I ended up spending recesses learning to write resumes and cover letters, afternoons at the public library looking for jobs, and then evenings coaching my mom, all of which was through trial and error. And I mention all of this not because I was successful. This is not some heroic story, unfortunately, but I had applied for hundreds of jobs and ended up getting 0 callbacks. And it was devastating because, as these online job portals will tell you, just click submit. Little did I know that clicking submit is only the ticket to admission. There was so much more that I was missing out on that led to all of these rejections. And it wasn't until many years later that I started uncovering pieces of what I was missing. And I still remember it was early days in my college career, and I was working in the library. I was doing a homework assignment, and I was heading to my dorm room to head to bed for the evening. I bumped into several of my classmates, all of whom were decked out in suits and ties and formal business attire, and they were all walking in the very opposite direction. It was at that point that I started wondering, wait a second, why aren't they studying? And why are they walking in the very opposite direction to where I was going? And it wasn't until the next day that I realized that there was an employer that had come onto campus, that they had participated in a career fair that I had gone to myself, and that they had handpicked several people to join them at an evening reception that I clearly wasn't invited to and that I didn't even know existed. What was I missing? Well, there was a lot of things that I was missing. I was missing out on that opportunity. And moreover, whereas I had gone to that career fair and I was so focused on the free swag that was on the table, turns out that my friends, my classmates, saw a completely different set of opportunities. They saw the relationship building opportunity. They saw the career building opportunity. And so in speaking to the right people and navigating the system, they had emerged with internships and jobs and career building opportunities, whereas I walked away with what you see on the screen here. You've probably heard of the cliche, it's important to work not just hard, but to work smart. and as colleagues and friends here in the UC system, I know we are a hardworking group of talented individuals. But here, as my roommates have shown me, working hard is, again, just the ticket to admission. As I was trying to learn my economics 101, turns out that there was so much more that I was missing out on. And again, I started to learn some of these so-called unspoken rules little by little. And it took me into the corporate world for me to understand some of the missing pieces of the equation. I still remember it was my first day in a corporate role. Here was my desk. I was sitting to the left-hand side. I was still setting up my laptop on my first day and sitting beside my colleague who was at the same job and had started at the same time. When 15 minutes into setting up our email accounts, my manager's manager's manager walks over and invites my colleague to lunch. At which point I thought, this is amazing. The folks in this organization are so invested in our careers that they're just going to take time out of their busy schedules to invite us to lunch. I was preparing to pack my bags and join them. Now, I'm seeing some chuckles around the room. Clearly, I was missing out on something, and it was the cue that, well, this was an invite-only invitation. It wasn't open to everybody. And it was because while my colleague, even before her role had even begun, had started building relationships, had started seeking out some of these opportunities. And well, what I started realizing was there was so much more that I really needed to learn. And at the time, though, I just frankly felt alone. And it was not until I started interviewing over 500 professionals across geographies and industries and job types, friends and colleagues and alumni of the UC system who contributed to this effort, that I started realizing what I was missing. And well, as a bit of a nerd, I ended up really nerding out over this topic. I looked at organizational psychology research. I looked at labor market research. I looked at psychology research, all in the search of an answer to the following question, which is what separates those who get ahead from those who stumble and don't know why? And the answer was this. It's the ability to recognize and embrace something called bids. Now, I said I was a nerd, and one of the things that I was doing in the depths of the library was looking into something I didn't expect to venture into, which is the world of marriage counseling. Now, bear with me here. There's going to be some relevance, but again, I'm a nerd, right? So I was like, this concept called bids, let's dig into this a little bit. And there's a researcher named Dr. John Gottman, who spent his life and career analyzing the characteristics that separate happy couples that stay together from unhappy couples that lead to separation. And he had an interesting scenario that you may find relatable. And it's the following. You're watching television with your significant other when all of a sudden they say, I'm hungry. Now, according to Dr. John Gottman, this is a pop quiz to which many people get it wrong. And according to this individual's research, there are 3 potential ways in which you can react to a situation like this. The first reaction is to ignore the bid, to continue watching television and pretend as if your significant other hadn't said a thing at all. There's a second option, which is to say, hey, I'm heading to the fridge, I'm heading to the microwave, I'm actually feeling the rumbles in my tummy myself. Could I get you something? How about we pause and we get a snack? And then there's a third option, which is to say, didn't you just eat? Aren't you trying to lose weight? Isn't it late? Don't we have other things to be doing right now? Now, judging from just your facial expressions around the room, I think we have a good sense of what the so-called right answer is in this situation. And well, it's not the other ones. It's to embrace the bid, to recognize the bid, not to ignore the bid, not to smack down the bid. Now, at this point, you're probably wondering, why on earth is Gorick talking about marriage counseling? Well, as the liberal arts major that I was, I couldn't help but see the broader significance of this seemingly benign situation, where, well, according to these marriage counseling experts, bids are requests for human connection. It's your significant other telling you, I want something of you right now. I want to talk to you right now. I want you to embrace me right now. But the liberal arts major in me thought, wait a second. What you're really talking about here is an opportunity. It's the universe sending you a signal and you now having the opportunity to do something with that signal. And when I think about, well, if we think of bids as opportunities, then, well, every email we receive could be an opportunity. Every email, every meeting that we're invited to or that we're rolling our eyes at could be an opportunity. Every assignment we receive that maybe, again, we're rolling our eyes at or wondering, why on earth am I being told to do this? Or why on earth are we doing this at all? There could be a bid hidden beneath the surface. And as we walk about our college campuses and laboratories and centers, we may encounter that colleague that we may not have ever met before, or we've encountered this one colleague a dozen times before. But like me, we're too awkward to ever make eye contact or to say hello. Well, there could be someone that we could meet through this seemingly benign situation. These are all bids. These are all opportunities. And what I didn't realize was that we are all walking down an art gallery, the art gallery of life. And whereas some of us will see the sunset in the background versus the smokestacks in the midground versus the rowboats in the foreground, well, this reminds me an awful lot of that career fair. It reminds me an awful lot of me going online looking for career opportunities, me overhearing a conversation in the office. Well, these were all bids. These were all details that different people will pick out. All it takes is a certain discerning eye to navigate these spaces effectively. So the question is how? How do we go about doing this? Well, I have 2 steps for you all, which I hope can lay the foundation for how you embrace the bids of the Now Conference and, well, all the opportunities that will come your way in your roles here in the UC system. The first is to reflect on what you want. And the second is to seek it out wherever you go. Let's talk about reflecting on what you want. One of the things that I've noticed is that there is a long spectrum on which we all sit. And it's the spectrum from goal orientation to experience orientation. Let me share with you what I mean by goal orientation. I know we have the mental image of a map that permeates today's program. So I thought, hey, let's add a map to this keynote. And here we are. Imagine you are taking a road trip from, let's say, San Francisco all the way to, let's say, New York City. And you're trying to get from one place to another. Well, if you're thinking of this as a road trip, you may encounter, even just in your morning commutes, different types of people on the road. Well, there are those who have a certain goal in mind. And when it comes to our careers, it may be that I want to lead the center. It should be become/lead the center, a certain role. Or you want to help the world understand X. You're working towards a certain cause that gets you up in the morning ready to contribute. Or there's a certain population that you want to contribute to, first generation low-income college students, for example, or transitioning military service members or what have you. Or you want this house and that car and this lifestyle, which is great too. But on the way to getting to that destination are a number of pit stops and highway exits and hidden prerequisites. Maybe it's time to learn how to code or pick up a certain skill. Maybe it's time to build a certain network and to get an in with policymakers on a certain particular topic. Maybe it's to understand generative AI, which is moving and shaking your industry and function. Maybe it's to get a PhD, a certain credential. Maybe it's to have marketing experience or design experience or coaching experience or teaching experience. Maybe it's to develop a certain portfolio. For example, when it comes to design, or a certain track record of having done a certain set of work and contributed in a certain set of areas. Well, these I think of as the goal-oriented types. And they may even uplift themselves and say, I really need to be in Chicago or in Singapore or closer to UC Merced. Well, these are a certain type of people on one end of the spectrum. And I'm talking about extremes here, so bear with me. But road trips aren't just about getting to the destination. It's also about having a good time, enjoying the music, enjoying the company of the people you're with. And well, for those who are goal-oriented, what I see are two challenges. One is not knowing where you want to be, being on that fast lane on the freeway, but not necessarily knowing where you want to go. Or you know exactly where you want to go, but you're not sure of how you'll get there. Now, that's one extreme, as I mentioned. And there's also the experience-oriented types who are going on this road trip and thinking, there's more to life than just getting to a certain destination. I want to do purposeful work. I want to have good work-life balance. I want to work with people I like. I want to do work that develops my knowledge and skills. I want to do work that I like and that I'm passionate about. I want to be recognized for my contributions. And I want to have good and stable pay. And no matter which of these resonate with you, if all of them resonate with you, if none of them resonate with you, the challenge, if you happen to be on the experience-oriented extreme, is maybe not knowing what matters or not being honest with yourself about what matters. And what I notice, again, talking about extremes here, is when I hang out with the goal-oriented types, they might look at the experience-oriented and think, gee, you're awfully lazy. But then I hang out with the experience-oriented types, and they're looking at the goal-oriented, and they're thinking, gee, do you not realize that there's so much more to life and how we spend our time in daily lives than just getting to the singular goal? And there's not a right or wrong answer. It's a matter of values. It's a matter of your context. And you may transition from goal-oriented to maybe more experience-oriented or vice versa, depending on where you may be in your life and career. And that's okay. But the first step is to recognize that where you are maybe shapes what you want to do and what matters to you. And it may be different from those of other people. So my first nudge to you is, are you feeling more goal-oriented or maybe more experience-oriented right now? Not in that black and white sense, but where do you kind of sit on that spectrum? Keep that answer in mind as you go about not just today, but every day, because it may guide the types of bids that you look out for. All right, now what? Well, we've done a bit of reflection, and I hope that you'll continue in this reflecting process throughout today. But the second is to seek it out wherever you go, whatever this it is. It's almost like a game of Where's Waldo, where there's just so many opportunities that lurk beneath the surface. There are hidden opportunities all around us all the time. How do we make sense of which ones to take advantage of? And here I have 4 bids that will come your way every single day. In fact, I'd imagine that if you received an email or you read the news or you came across a colleague this morning, you may have already seen them. It's just up to you to spot them and to embrace them. The first is whenever you meet someone that you're intrigued by, and I was looking at the concurrent sessions later on today and seeing all the talented people who will be leading these workshops and thinking about all the great people that we'll be able to meet as well. And then I think about learning about someone that I'm intrigued by. I'm thinking about just even yesterday, I was in a conversation and there were certain terms that were dropped in a conversation that I had no idea what the definitions of were. And then I overheard some mentions of certain individuals. And I was thinking, I don't know if I know who they are. Well, those are bids. The third is when you learn about a topic that you're intrigued by. When I skim the headlines, there's always a new term. When I receive email newsletters from my center, from my department, from the UC system, there's always something that's going on that's unfamiliar. Well, there's some that maybe I don't care as much to look into, but there are some that pique my interest enough for me to spend some time looking into. And then finally, there's projects that come your way, whether it's you overhearing someone complaining about how they're lacking resources or time or energy. Well, somebody else's pain point could be your opportunity to contribute, to ask questions, to join. And when I think about these 4 opportunities, well, here's your opportunity to spark, to learn, to search, and to offer. And let's go into a little bit more detail on what it looks like to spark, learn, search, and offer, starting with spark. The first is this: look left, look right, and say, hi, I'm so-and-so. And we're going to have so many great opportunities to do this throughout our concurrent sessions, where there will, just by definition, be more people that you don't know than that you do know. Whether it comes down to sending them a message in the chat window saying, hi, I don't know if you remember me, but we happen to have been in the same meeting just last month. It's nice to see a familiar name. Or if it comes down to joining the session a little bit early or being slightly slower than the others to click leave meeting, that could be where the magic happens. In fact, this happened to me just last week where I was a little bit more slow in clicking leave meeting. And just as I was about to click that red button, someone said, Gorick, do you have a moment? We hopped on another Zoom call. Half an hour went by and a world of opportunities opened up for us to collaborate. This happens every single day on a college campus. You've probably seen a lot of your students maybe burying their heads in their phones, and you're probably thinking to yourselves, my goodness, you're missing out on something. Well, here is an opportunity for us to walk our own talk around making that eye contact, seeing the people around us, and seeing all the possibilities that can emerge. When in doubt, two phrases that I love to drop in my everyday vernacular is the following. Would it be helpful if I blank? If I overhear someone talking or hear an opportunity, or if I'm not invited and I'm feeling a little bit bad for myself, saying, I'd love to learn or I'd love to contribute. What would it take for me to join? I'd love to be a fly on the wall, even if it's down to just taking notes and observing. And I'm keeping one eye on the chat here. I'm so glad to hear that some of these topics are resonating with y'all. Thank you. That's all it comes down to when it comes to Spark. It's to see that bids are coming at us all the day, all the time and every day. And the second is to learn. And learning comes down to first, well, figuring out which of these three situations you might be in as you're thinking about, for example, if you're goal-oriented or experience-oriented. Do you know what you want to do in the future? Do you know the characteristics of the life that you'd like to live and the daily life that you would like to be seeing yourself in? And do you know how to get there? Some of us may say yes to both, that I know exactly what I want to do and I know exactly how I'm going to get there. In fact, in which case, fantastic. Take everything that I'm talking about today, write it down, and start executing. Now, the second scenario is where I see a lot of people, which is I kind of have a sense of where I want to be in the future, but I'm not quite sure of how I'm going to get there. I have this lofty goal, but it seems a little distant. And then just as many people are in the third category where, I'm ambitious. I want to be doing, I feel like I could be doing more. I feel like I should be doing more. But what is this more? I'm not sure exactly what it is, and I'm not exactly sure of how I'm going to get there. And regardless of whether you're in the first camp, the second, or the third, I found it helpful to do the following. The first is to realize that you'll get there. It may not happen today, it may not happen this week, but you'll get there. It begins by asking yourselves, who inspires me? What are the characteristics of someone that I look up to? What parts of them do I want to emulate? And I think the language here is important because it's what aspects of them. No person is perfect, and you're your own individual with your own interests and aspirations and personality and whatnot. What aspects of this person do I want to emulate? And I may need to combine the characteristics of multiple people to piece together the person that I am. And then finally, how do they get to where they are today? One of my favorite hobbies is honestly LinkedIn research. And I was looking up the great community members, whether it's alumni, staff, faculty, and I came upon someone named Jose Hernandez. And you can tell from his orange suit, he's an astronaut, or he was an astronaut. And I thought to myself, especially since growing up, I wanted to become an astronaut. That was my dream job, but it seemed so distant, literally and figuratively so distant to become an astronaut, that I thought, gee, how do I even begin? Well, with the internet at our disposal and with everyone and their email address so accessible to us, and certainly LinkedIn being a resource too, I started doing some research. I scrolled down and I saw, my goodness, UC Santa Barbara? Really? Masters of Science, Electrical Engineering. He had also graduated from the University of the Pacific. Okay, interesting. What I love to do with LinkedIn, and I'd encourage you all to do this as well, is to expand all the different accordions, go to the very bottom, and start scrolling up. Hello, Barb from UCSB. I would encourage you to scroll back up and start mapping out their careers in chronological order. You don't have to spend a lot of time on this, but let's take a look. University of the Pacific, electrical and electronics engineering, 1985. Looks like he spent 5 years there. He then, it looks like, went straight to a master's degree. That's helpful in terms of just trying to figure out what he may have done. All right, let's take a look at his experiences. Lawrence Labs. Don't we have folks from Lawrence Labs here? Let's take a look. Electronics engineer, 7 years, a group leader, deputy program manager. Now, there's some lingo here that's unfamiliar to me, which is probably a cue for me. If a program manager or an electronics engineer, it's unfamiliar, that's my cue to potentially open up a new tab in my browser and start looking. And then let's see, materials research engineer. I didn't even know you could do that as a job. Ah, okay. And then he became an astronaut. Now, here's the thing about a data point. It's not a trend. However, if you combine enough, if you do this research enough, and you combine it with the explicit criteria on the NASA website where they tell you these count as STEM degrees and these don't count as STEM degrees. In fact, by the way, that is a thing on the NASA website. And you start looking into people's profiles and you start seeing, oh, many of them were test pilots. Many of them were in the military. Many of them have advanced degrees. You start trying to figure out what the unspoken and sometimes unwritten criteria are for getting to where you want to be. Whether it's to become the head of a center, the head of the UC system, the president of your university, or an astronaut, it's surprising to me just how many people have a LinkedIn profile and how easy it is to be able to do this research now. And as Elizabeth shared here in the chat window, wise words, which is that LinkedIn has an alumni feature, which allows you to see folks who've been a part of your institution in the past. So thank you, Elizabeth, for calling that out. Now, this is such a fun little side project of mine that I actually have a newsletter where I deconstruct the paths that people have taken. And Jose Hernandez happens to be someone that I profile in addition to the CEO of Walmart and most recently SpongeBob SquarePants. I'll share with you a little bit more about how to get involved towards the end. But I love this, and I would encourage all of you to just make this a general habit because it may help you figure out what lurks, what opportunities are out there. Because again, patterns are all around us all the time. The third is to search. And two tools that I love using are one, Google News, news.google.com or google.com/news. Whether it's machine learning, generative AI, a CRISPR, whatever it is that you're maybe working on or intrigued by, this is a great way to quote unquote get smart on a topic really quickly and to figure out what's happening in the world and what may I want to learn more about and who's doing this work and what organizations are doing this work. Another tool that I love is Google Alerts, google.com/alerts, where you can type in a term and Google will do the hard work for you of scraping the internet and sending you a digest every day. I have mine set at 4 p.m. on the people you're interested in, the organizations you're interested in, the topics that you're interested in. And just like that, you can just skim as an executive would with their executive assistant sharing with them a memo, what's going on in the world. And over time, you'll start understanding not just what you're interested in, what gives you energy to be reading about, what doesn't give you energy, but moreover, what's happening and where you might want to position yourself for your future path. And the final one is offer. So much of what I just talked about, with the exception of perhaps Spark, is quiet work. It's this invisible work that I never realized that people even did. But now that I see people doing it and I hear about people doing it, I kind of can't unsee it. And one of the pieces of invisible work is actually interpersonal, where when you come across someone who's doing this work or is aligned in your mission, that's a bid for you to reach out. And one of the things that I love to do is just send an email that looks like something like this. Thank you. Follow up. For example, if you meet someone from the Now conference today. Hi, so-and-so. My name is Gorick, and I am, like you, a staff member in whatever department, and I attended your talk on this topic. I'm, by the way, also a UCSB alum who studied economics and moved to the West Coast from Ohio. I'm just totally making this up. I just wanted to send you a quick thank you for sharing your experience transitioning from military service over to academia and then to industry and then now to academic research. I especially appreciate your advice on blank, blank, and blank, and I'll be sure to do blank. As I think about where I'd like to take my career next, I'd really love to do blank. which aligns nicely with your work with blank. If there's ever a chance for us to work together, please kindly keep me in mind. In fact, I've attached my LinkedIn profile here, or here's some ideas on how we might be able to continue this conversation. Looking forward to staying in touch, Gorick. What are you doing? You're writing a specific subject line that gives people context around how and why you're reaching out. You're addressing others professionally. You're introducing yourself concisely. You're customizing your note so it doesn't come across as if it's a piece of spam that you're sending to everybody. And you're being clear about what bid you're offering. And then finally, you're either offering your availability, offering a chance to connect, or just being gracious in your sign-off. Now, don't just copy and paste this. This is my language. It'd be awkward if everyone sent the same email. But what's most important is actually not the words that I use, it's the blanks. Fill in those blanks with your own voice, your own experience, your own interests, and that will be felt and read by the other person as a genuine piece of outreach that could spark a genuine relationship. Now, it's a little ironic that I, as an author, would be plagiarizing somebody else's quote as my last slide, but here we are. It's my favorite quote. It's not my quote, it's still my favorite quote. And it's the following. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. And I love this quote because while I can't promise you, in fact, I can guarantee you that the next thing you do probably won't be the big life-changing thing, but it comes down to daily habits and little interactions and little tweaks in how we approach and see opportunity around us. And I think planting a tree is an apt mental image here because, well, it'll take time for those trees to grow, but over weeks and months and years and maybe even decades, we'll look back at some point and see an entire forest of opportunities that we will have sown for ourselves, starting with small decisions that we make today. So the question then becomes, what seeds will you plant? And I'd love for you all to return to that poll everywhere link. I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste it back into the chat window here. And for those of you who are on your phones, I've got this QR code. What bids might you look out for starting this afternoon? And we're still early in the morning. Let's change this morning. What are you going to do starting right after the session? New connections, fellow writers, LinkedIn requests, people who are doing work that I want to transition into, ways to connect. Now, I would love to challenge you all in a couple of ways, which is one, just writing one piece down. And certainly there's been research that has shown that you will accelerate your ability and increase your ability to achieve your goals just by verbalizing it and writing it down. So you're already making a big and important step just by contributing to this poll for yourselves. And once you've contributed for yourself, write it down, whether it's as a text message to yourself on a sticky note. Make sure you keep it long after the session ends. And then finally, I'd encourage you to take a look at what somebody else wrote in this poll and maybe add a second goal of yours inspired by somebody else. And I'm seeing here a lot of contributions around building relationships, connections, mentors. So I can already see that there is the urge to connect. And this is the amazing opportunity that we have here with Now, which is a chance to meet people that we would have otherwise not met. And even if it's a quick chance encounter, that's the spark that could transition into an email, that could transition into a phone call, that could transition into a completely new set of opportunities. So thank you for contributing to this poll. I hope that now that we've seen what we may not have otherwise seen, that we can then transition what we see to what we'll now do next. And so in the spirit of connections and to stay in touch, one thing that I would love to offer as a bid to all of you is if you are interested in those stories of how people got to where they are today and what you can do to follow in their footsteps, whether it's Jose Hernandez, SpongeBob SquarePants, the director of Dune, who was someone that I profiled recently, I encourage you to share your email with me and I'll be in your inbox on Monday with more career strategies based on people who've come before you. If you like what you saw, I'd encourage you to check out my book, The Unspoken Rules. Got an online masterclass. I have a series of flashcards that help you communicate with clarity and confidence. More of these fill in the blanks. And of course, my newsletter. And I would encourage all of you to stay in touch. I hope that this is the spark the tree, the seed that will plant an entire tree that becomes the relationship between you. And with that, I want to thank you all for your engagement. Thank you all for contributing. I learned a lot from this session. And with that, I want to hand things back over to Ying and to thank you all for your time here today. Thank you.